Good evening. This is the TVRI News, bringing you the latest report from around the world. First, the headlines. Israeli soldiers confront Palestinian protesters at the West Bank near Nablus. Zaire's president and prime minister failed to iron out differences ahead of peace talks.
Inmates holding guards hostage at a jail in Colombia released one captive, a 14-year-old girl. And locally, members of the Indonesian Democratic Party in their Bangka pledged their support for Golkar in the upcoming elections. Now the news in detail.
Israeli soldiers yesterday confronted Palestinian protesters at the West Bank settlement near Nablus. The protesters cut down power poles carrying electricity lines to the settlement.
Palestinian anger over Israel's decision to build another Jewish settlement in East Jerusalem shows no sign of abating. Process were outlined by Netanyahu to his cabinet. He wants to meet face-to-face with Yasser Arafat. Arafat indicated his support for peace talks in the US, but said the seizure of Arab lands must stop.
I'm not against it, but the problem is how to push forward and to prevent all the breaching of the peace process, especially confiscation of land, building settlement.
To force them both to compromise.
Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad said Friday Malaysia is a prime example of a peaceful, developed Islamic nation, unlike some Muslim nations where people are killing each other. He attributed multi-political...
Zaire's president Mobutu Sese Seko met yesterday with new Prime Minister Etienne Tshisekedi, but the two failed to iron out key differences ahead of peace talks with rebels in South Africa this weekend.
Political foes who now share shaky power, the Prime Minister and the President. At his palace, President Mobutu chided Etienne Tshisekedi for announcing his new cabinet without first telling him. Troops from the US and several other countries are on standby to get their nationals out. This is a British rapid deployment force.
If Kinshasa explodes, somehow we've got to ensure protection for the people we're going to evacuate from the other side. Then we have to get them back across the river.
Continuing with the news, we report on the statement of the Indonesian Democratic Party in Bangka. And we'll take a look at a report by the World Health Organization on the increase of sexually transmitted diseases in Europe.
We also have highlights on Ito, a city of tremors in Japan, and a report on recent bomb threat in London. Over to you, Syahnaz.
Thank you. About 1,326 Indonesian Democratic Party members from Bangka Regency said that they would support the upcoming election and also to support Golkar's winning. Yesterday at Bina Satria Stadium, Sungai Liat, the 1,326 people.
The World Health Organization, or WHO, warned yesterday that levels of sexually transmitted diseases are increasing throughout Europe.
The sweeping away of the old socialist systems in Eastern Europe may have meant opportunities for some in cities like Kiev, but it's also meant the collapse of many social services, including health. And it's this, combined with a sharp rise in poverty, which lies behind the new epidemic.
The problem with syphilis and with HIV in Eastern Europe is...
People in the Japanese city of Ito have become accustomed to the dangers of earthquake. 9,000 tremors struck the city alone in March. The problem of earthquake is so bad that some local claims that anyone in the town stamping their feet hard enough will break through into hell.
It's one of many small tremors. This was seen on March the 3rd. And then again and again.
The centre of British capital, London, was brought to a standstill on Friday after a new bomb scare believed to be the work of the IRA, the Irish Republican Army. Here is a report.
Conservative, Labour and Liberal Democrat. All Britain's major political parties have now published their campaign manifestos. And the Irish Republican Army, well, actions speak louder than...
Personal prosperity and security, wealth and welfare hand in hand.
The opinion polls predict Tony Blair will be the first Labour Prime Minister.
Those were the headlines. And now we have more report on Indonesia. From Jakarta, we report on control waste gas emissions.
From Tangerang, we have highlights of the readiness of the Air Force in preparation in the upcoming general elections. And we'll also take a look at Indonesia's participation in the Melbourne Mamba Festival and a report from Colombia and Florida.
Pollution in Jakarta has reached a serious level which demands government action to issue the new regulation on emissions. From the survey conducted by the Jakarta Police Department and the University of Indonesia's medical faculty, 41% of local traffic policemen tend to suffer from psychopathology and neurotic problems. These problems are caused by the environment in which they work, which is high polluted. According to the chief of Jakarta's Environmental Bureau, Abu Ju.
The inmates holding guards hostage at a jail in Colombia have allowed television cameras into the prison compound briefly. They also released one hostage, a 14-year-old girl who was visiting a relative when the siege began.
When prisoners seized the compound on Thursday night, the inmates are now demanding bulletproof vests, parachutes, and helicopters for their getaway.
At least 4 are dead and as many as 5 wounded in a confrontation which began last night between guards and prisoners inside a maximum security prison in the north.
At least 300 Indonesians participated in the Mamba Festival parade in Melbourne on March 15th. At the festival, the Indonesian participants performed traditional dance and traditional music utilizing gamelan.
The United States Space Shuttle Columbia, the oldest of NASA's 4 orbiters, lifted off from the Kennedy Space Center on Florida's East Coast at 19:20 GMT, 20 minutes late because of a problem sealing the shuttle's cabin.
Like leaks springing down the primary carbon dioxide scrubbers. The scrubbers, which remove carbon dioxide from the cabin air, were, NASA officials say, getting too warm. A backup system which employs lithium hydroxide canisters is now in use. The crew is already on backup oxygen canisters because the primary oxygen generating system broke down in March. During an
And it's now time for this evening's feature.
And for this evening's feature, we will show you our music corner, which will highlight the performance of the Indonesian band or group called Amigo. Enjoy the show.
What's the difference between playing in Jakarta and playing abroad? Well, is there any special feeling for the band, or maybe you would like to explain?
Yeah. This is for us. It's very lucky that we have experienced too much in abroad, overseas. Then in Indonesia, we are started to playing in 1994 in Jakarta. Yeah.
Have you ever released an album?
We released the first album, Amigos, in Malaysia in 1993. The title of the album is Cinta Tak Karuan.
Is it still, it has a Latin touch?
This is a Latin touch. All of the concept is a Latin touch, but this is the Malay language.
Pico, what's your next plan for Amigos?
Our next plan is in Jakarta. Since 1994, we perform in Jakarta, in Indonesia, So this is, we have released the first album in Indonesia with our producer is Rapita Company and also our consultant music, Faris RM.
And that's the news for tonight. Don't forget to tune again tomorrow morning.
We are Pryo and Syahnaz. Thank you very much for joining us, and good night.